Hi, everyone. Welcome back. This is Caitlin from grassfedgirl.com, and we're so excited. Today we have Kate Wallett. She is a health coach. She lives in New Hampshire, and she's a fitness buff. And she has been doing carnivore for 8 months. So she's going to tell us her story and what she's learned since she's been carnivore and some of her journey up to this point. So welcome, Kate.
Hey, Caitlin. Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to talk to fellow carnivore people.
Yeah, especially since we're isolated on a lockdown. So,
Absolutely. And I don't know
yes.
about you, but up here in New England, carnivore is definitely not something we talk about up here. So I think, it's very rare to run into someone that's all they do. So it's really fun to talk to someone who knows what I'm going through.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, you meet
yeah,
more keto people, which is
yeah,
fine. I can talk to them, of course, but
of course.
uh, the carnivores are much less common. So,
Yeah.
so
When you
how?
tell someone, they say, you don't eat vegetables? What do you mean you don't eat vegetables? They
No,
just
I
can't.
try to. I usually just tell them I'm low carb or something. Because then they just like, oh, okay, and then they don't go. They don't ask me because they know what that is. So then I don't have to deal with that. I mean, it depends.
Right,
If it's somebody who wants to know because they want to try it or something, it's just
right.
very situational. You'd have to
Absolutely.
decide what you're going to share. I don't
Yeah,
know.
absolutely.
Well, so what was your health journey like up to
Mm.
this, and then why did you get into carnivore?
Yeah, so my health journey is kind of like yours. I grew up, for me, I believe the culprit was that I was always on antibiotics. I was always sick. I always had some kind of upper respiratory system going, symptom going on. For the most part, it was usually pneumonia or strep throat. Every year I had either one. And so I was constantly put on medications, on antibiotics. And so I feel that that was the part of it. I also feel it was also nutrition. Growing up, we ate a lot of crap. It wasn't anything that was really healthy, and so I feel the mix of the both of those were definitely things that kind of led to my early young adult age. Why I was always so sick. For me, it was lots of headaches, a lot of bloody noses. Um, and I also was dealing with an injury that I had when I was 18. I got in a car accident and broke my pelvis on both sides. So most of the pain and everything that was going on was mostly directed at my hips and nothing to do with everything else that was going on as far as headaches and all that, because I was in pain every day from the car accident. Once that pain subsided, which was 7 years ago, that's when I started looking at my nutrition. And I was always an athlete. I thought I was always eating healthy. I ate most of my life. I was vegetarian. Um, Very rarely did I eat eggs. I always had a reaction to them. So if I ever ate any meat, it was maybe fish once or twice a year, only when my body really craved it. And then the other thing was hamburger, because I couldn't stand the texture of meat, which is why I was vegetarian, because I didn't like the way the meat felt in my teeth. So it was hamburger because I could break that up and I could cook it so there was no pink. So I would eat that, once or twice a year. Sometimes it would be, three days in a row, but it was only when my body craved it. And then I would just do away with that. But for the most part, back 7 years ago, when I got the hip situation taken care of, my husband's a chiropractor. We got to the point where I just no longer have any pain. And that's when all this other stuff started coming too. And I was like, okay, I got to really start paying attention to why I still have a headache. Why am I still, having these symptoms? And when we started digging into that, it was the nutrition aspect of it. So I did GAPS, I did the Gerson's therapy, I did paleo, I did autoimmune paleo, and I finally settled with the vegetarian keto, basically, is what I fell with 7 years ago. So it even got to the point where I wasn't even doing sweet potatoes, I wasn't doing carrots, I wasn't doing any nightshades. So it was very restrictive. And I've heard you say this too, that I felt like that was more restrictive than what I'm doing now, because I believe when we're eating those things, it causes us to have these triggers for other cravings, for other things that we want. Kind of like what you were saying, like the keto snacks and things like that. I couldn't have keto snacks because my body reacted so violently to any kind of sugar. It didn't matter what kind of sugar it was. It just was very violent with that. And that was right down to migraines, bloody noses, hives all over my body, gas, bloating, uncomfortableness. I mean, to the point where I spent a lot of time in my bed, just curled up in a ball and not wanting to be around anybody because I was so irritable and just not feeling well. So then I fell upon the Institute for Integrative Nutrition and decided, okay, this is how I'm going to heal myself. I'm going to learn everything that I need to know about nutrition, and I'm going to heal my gut. And so every step of the way, I did heal. I got better until I fell upon this vegetarian keto. And I thought that was the best I was going to feel ever, because that was the last step for me. And I had, a lot of energy. I felt really good. I was very athletic. I've always ran, biked, ice climbed, rock climbed. I mean, you name it, anything outdoors, I always did. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to have to deal with the little remaining things that are left. I'm no longer getting, the bloody noses, the hives and all that. I can deal with the bloating, and I can deal with, the lesser of the evil of the symptoms. And then I started working with my clients. I had a handful of people that were missing something too, no matter what we did. And I knew they were doing the work. You have those clients, and I know you know it too, that they're doing the work and they're not seeing 100% of the results they should be getting. And so I was like, okay, I want to say it was probably last year and around June, I heard Jordan Peterson on the Joe Rogan podcast. And I said, you know what? That's the next step. That's like extreme keto, basically, is what they're talking about. And I had a handful of my patients that I put on that were either Crohn's or they had some kind of autoimmune, and instantly they started getting better within a month. Some people it was within a week.
So you put them on it even though you hadn't done it?
Yeah. And that's so odd for me. I never do that. And in the midst of all this, I was doing research on it. And I just couldn't bring myself to eat the meat. And I said, okay, Kate, you have to stop being a Sally and just eat the meat and do it. And so it took me about 8 months.
It wasn't an ethical thing. It was just
No,
a texture thing.
it was just the
Taste or
texture.
texture.
Yes, both.
Do you
Yeah.
think you got that like from your mom, or like, because I know I have other women that I know or in my life that kind of say the same thing. And do you think that's just like something that comes from childhood, or like that it's not feminine, or where do you think that comes from?
Well, I don't think it came from my mom in that aspect because she ate liver, she ate like organ meats, she ate all that stuff. I think for me, it was that she forced me to eat it. So I would have to sit at the kitchen table until I actually ate it. And I think I had that visceral reaction every time,
Like, you're not going to tell me what to do.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like that little rebellion in me. And I think that was kind of attached to those thoughts of me. And so anytime I thought about that, I just didn't want to eat it. And I think that's where a lot of that stemmed from.
So it is her fault.
Yeah. We'll just blame her. It's her fault. So I think, it took me some time, but I was like, all right, suck it up, buttercup, do it. And because all your clients are doing it, and I'm a big believer, and I'm sure you are too. And I don't have my clients do anything I haven't done. And I don't think it's fair to do something like that, especially, carnivore. So I did it. And within a week, unbelievable. The first week, no bloating. I felt 100 pounds lighter, and I wasn't overweight per se. I just had a lot of inflammation still. And so that bloating went away. And obviously when you do that, you lose inches and you see more muscle definition. So that's what happened. The second week, I noticed that my gums no longer bled. And for me, ever since I was a teenager, because I was vegetarian, right? My gums were always bleeding. And it's not like it was a light bleeding. It was like someone punched you in the mouth kind of bleeding. Anytime I flossed my teeth, anytime I brushed my teeth, that's what would happen. And my dentist, any dentist that I went to was like, you got to floss more. You got to floss more. Well, when, I'll tell you, Caitlin, when I went vegetarian keto, I was only eating once or twice a day. And I was flossing like 3 or 4 times a day and my gums were still bleeding. So they couldn't tell me it was because of that. Um, so that was huge. Like within 2 weeks, my gums stopped bleeding. Within 2 weeks, my hair stopped falling out. Like I didn't have to clean the bottom of the shower anymore. Mental clarity. Oh my goodness. Like when I went vegetarian keto, I thought I had amazing mental clarity. Within a day or two of going carnivore, I noticed a big difference of that too. Energy levels through the roof. And I already had a lot of energy levels. I was very I was very highly energetic, but even more so now. Sleeping better, definitely. So a lot of these things, huge. So these past 8 months, I did realize that I am healing. There are things that I still have reactions to every time I try. So when I was 150 days in, I was like, okay, well, first off, I only wanted to do it for 3 months. That was it. I just wanted to experience it. But the longer I kept doing it, the better I kept feeling. So I was like, why do I want to stop? So 150 days in, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try one mushroom and see what happens. And I thought I was okay because normally instant bloody noses, instant migraines, well, you name it, nothing happened. And I was like, whoa, this is cool. But I did wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning with my legs on fire and I had a ton of hives on my legs. So I was like, okay, I'm still having reactions, but they're not as severe and they're not as quick. So it lets me know I'm healing. So I was like, okay, I'm going to keep going, see how much more healing I can do. So then 200 days in, I decided I was going to do a little bit of sweet potato. So when I say a little bit, it's only a bite. That's all I'm doing. So it was like one mushroom, one bite of sweet potato, same thing. I ended up getting a headache, a migraine, and then I had some hives. So I was like, okay, I can't have sweet potato. And then just the other day, I decided I was going to do a summer squash. Oh, not summer squash, excuse me, butternut squash. And I had a bite of that and I had the same reaction. I had a hive. And the reason why I want to incorporate these is because I'm going to be doing a huge event. I'm going to be doing a bike ride, a 200-mile bike ride. And I was thinking that mindset of we have to have carbohydrates to do this. And I'm just going to have to do it without carbohydrates. So let's just be full on carnivore.
You can just carry like some beef suet in your pouch, your running pouch or something.
I'm going to have lots of, beef jerky, lots of, just some fats. And
probably your electrolytes, you got to have you got to make up some little drinks or something for yourself too. Or just have your salt and dump it in your mouth on the way.
That's true. I do use a lot of LMNT. I found that is something huge. I was myself, as like you in your story, I'm finding that I do need electrolytes. We're taking out the carbohydrates, and it's called carbohydrates for a reason. It does have a water molecule attached. That's why we have a lot of, water withhold. We withhold a lot of water. Well, when you take that out, your kidneys are no longer functioning over time. So you don't have that reaction with that sodium potassium pump anymore as often as you would if you had a lot of insulin moving along. We're not using a lot of our insulin spike. We don't have insulin spikes anymore. We do have insulin, but not the spikes. And so we have to have more sodium. We have to have more magnesium and potassium. So I do use Rob Wolf's product, the LMNT, and I have that throughout the day. I usually have like 2 or 3 a day. And when I don't have them, I have major cramps. It's not like a small Charlie horse. It's huge. I mean, you can see my fingers distort, like they kind of go all kinds of crazy directions. It's funny how and I have normal hands. But it's really funny. I get like cramps in my neck, places that you normally wouldn't think that you would get cramps. often, but I get
You're
them all.
you're really sensitive.
Mhm.
So tell us like kind of the difference between what was your typical day of vegetarian keto food and what was your day now look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thinking back, it was I I had at least 2 meals a day. So I had a lot of greens. I loved my greens. So I would saute my greens to break them down a little bit. It was easier to digest, less bloating when I did that. So a lot of spinach, a lot of kale, collard greens, that kind of stuff. And then I would saute a bunch of onions and mushrooms, and I would put them on top of it or as a wrap, in a lettuce wrap kind of thing. So that's what I would do. I wouldn't eat beans. I wouldn't have any kind of lectins. I kept that stuff pretty low so that I wouldn't have a lot of reaction. So I would eat, 2 times a day, but I was hungry even in between that. And I figured,
What was your protein?
so my protein, I know I'm going to laugh about this. It was in my vegetables, like that's what I would say. I'd get my protein through my vegetables, all my greens that I would eat. Caitlin, I would eat a container of, those big family size containers of spinach. I would eat that in a sitting. That would be my meal. So I was getting the protein from that.
I'm surprised you're still alive. What
A
was
lot
did
of
you
people
put
think
like
that.
olive oil on it or something?
I would have 5 avocados a day. It was ridiculous. I'd eat a lot of avocados. I
So
think that
you were basically vegan then.
pretty much, pretty much. And the reason why I say it was vegetarian is because I would have, like the fish occasionally or the meat occasionally. So I think that's what saved me was that.
So
It was
you didn't eat any cheese or
no, can't do that.
coconut oil or
Yeah, we did do coconut oil. I did do that. I
you do
cooked a lot with that.
nuts or eating nuts?
I did eat nuts, not a lot of them because I found if I did, I'd eat the whole bag.
Yeah.
So it was, but they were raw nuts when I would eat them.
Uh,
Seeds, I did do a lot. I did do a
I,
lot of seeds.
I'm getting a stomach ache from hearing
I can't even imagine eating that way now. But yeah, it was mostly a lot of greens and avocados was the go-to. And yeah, so now when I transitioned to carnivore, I kept the avocados because that was a staple for me. I loved my avocados. I enjoyed them. So when I would have a steak, I would have an avocado with it. And I did that for the first month. Uh, and then after that, I was like, I should probably take that out too and see if I can just go without. I thought I was going to miss them. I didn't miss them at all because I get the fattier steaks anyway, like the ribeyes and the London broil and the flat irons. So I do a lot of that, and I didn't miss it. I'll occasionally have one if I feel like I need more energy, more fat, because our body runs off in fat or carbs. So when I feel like I need more energy, I'll have an avocado without any problems. But if I eat avocado back to back, I do have issues, which is kind of interesting.
I say you
Um,
have a long way to go with gut healing because, I mean,
mhm.
from what you're eating before, you're basically like rubbing like Brillo pads on your small intestine.
My poor system. My poor system. And on top of all of that, I was still doing all my exercising that I would do. So yeah, and that causes inflammation too, right? So I do have a lot of healing left to do still. And I'm okay with that because I don't feel like I'm missing anything. I don't feel like I need to have anything else. I feel pretty satisfied. And so I'm okay with staying this way for as long as I need to. And if it's forever, it's forever. If it's not, then that's fine too. I just love having that open mind and being willing to try anything. So right now, this is where I'm going to stay until I totally heal. And I feel that I am, slowly now. I mean, just think about all the years that I was sick too. So it takes that much, you got to think of, okay, it took me all these years to get to where I'm at. It's going to take me a lot to get to where I want to be too. So I'm willing to put the work in.
Well,
Yeah.
but don't you think that, like you said before, isn't it less work now than it was before?
Yeah, because I order my meat online. I don't go to the stores. I mean, I have family, so I do have to go for them,
Yeah.
obviously. And I still cook for them because I'm the cook in the house. But yeah, it's totally, I do more work for their meals than I do for mine. And I don't feel like I travel to, and I don't feel like this is when I was traveling, I was a sales rep when I did the vegetarian keto. I had to take my customers out to meals, and I brought my own meal. I mean, that was a lot of work.
Mm,
Now
yeah.
it doesn't matter. You can get meat anywhere.
Yeah, you can always get a steak, or especially at a nicer restaurant.
Absolutely. The
Um,
downside of eating out, though, is I'm all about organic, grass fed, grass finished. It's hard to find something like that. That's the downside to it.
well, yeah, yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, I always try to eat that way at home as much as I can, and then when I'm out or traveling, I'm just like, whatever, because I feel like I'm doing the best I can at home, and then when I'm out, I just like can't worry about it.
Yeah,
So, and I
I
mean,
totally agree.
90% of the time I'm home, so it's like, well, now it's
Exactly.
100%.
Now it is. Yeah. And I
Yeah,
agree with
will
you.
we ever get to travel again? I wonder.
We will. I know we will. We have to.
Yeah.
But I do believe that a lot of my gut issues were from childhood. And so that's why I refuse to eat something that hasn't been grass fed, grass finished because of the antibiotics in the conventional meat. I just won't do it. I feel that I have to wholeheartedly believe in that. That was what contributed to why I was so ill. Part of the, big part of the reason why. So I make sure that I don't eat the conventional meat. Yeah.
I try like I used to be a lot more hardcore actually before I started carnivore, but then when I saw people healing on like regular meat and even myself like I used to react to everything. I mean,
Hmm.
I was more like you are talking about, and so I would, if I did eat in a restaurant, especially for a few days in a row or something, if then I would like swell up but
Yeah.
then when I started carnivore, it's like I don't react to anything now. And I'm like, well, I think I'm just less hardcore about it because I'm like, well, I think I'm healing anyway, and I also
Yeah.
don't want people to think that they have to do that perfectly
Exactly.
so they don't even start.
Yeah.
Um,
I agree with you on that.
but I mean, I think there's no reason why. I don't think it's that much more expensive, especially if you're eating ground beef or something. I mean, there's really tons, and in Tennessee, there's tons of cows and farmers and stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's really not hard to find things. And I like to go for like the fatty stuff, like that nobody else buys, like the oxtail and the tongues and the
Yeah.
short ribs and things like that. So,
That's
so,
awesome.
so what do you see for yourself in the future? Like, what do you see where you're gonna go with this?
Yeah, I think I'm going to continue on hardcore. And by any means, I love that you just brought that up. I don't force my clients to do this either. I meet them where they're at, and it's only for those people that I know need a little bit more. And I feel that for me, what works for me is grass fed, grass finished, and what I feel is I need to do this a little bit longer. So I think every 50 days I'll introduce something, try it, like let my body heal, see how it goes, and just keep it very low oxalate, low lectin options when I do that, and see if that my body agrees with that. And if it doesn't, then I just wait a little bit longer. I'm okay. I just want the flexibility for you know um, when we travel, if we go somewhere and there's nothing other than the low oxalate vegetables, I can have that, that kind of thing, and be a little bit less strict with my meat too. That's something as a family that we believe in, but I agree with you on that. We don't have to eat that way to heal. We don't. I just feel that's what we're strong with. Is one of the things of me coming on to eat meat, I wanted to make sure I ate ethical meat and clean meat was the deal I made with myself. And that's for me. And that doesn't have to be for
Yeah,
everybody.
no, I mean,
Yeah, I
totally.
get
Like,
that.
especially if you're a vegetarian long time. And I
Yes,
mean, I told you I was too, and I was super into all the environment and all that stuff. And, I've seen all the movies and, all the documentaries and everything. I mean, there's no reason why that you can't try to do that as much as possible because
agreed.
it is available, especially if you just are a little out of the box. You can always go on eatwild.com and find local farmers near you. It's really easy.
That's
So,
awesome.
so what do you think about liver and organ meats?
Yeah, I think they're a necessity if you're going to eat this way for a long period of time. I believe that, we can get a lot of the stuff that we need out of muscle meat, meaning like the steaks, but I also feel like we need to have a little bit more than that. If we look at our ancestors, they did have liver. It was kind of like a prized possession of the ones that went out and did the hunting. They ate the liver. And I feel that we should do the same thing. I'm not saying you have to have it every day. I'm not saying you have to have it all the time. I'm just saying that you should incorporate it occasionally into your way of eating. And variety, so I do a lot of variety when it comes to meat, not just eating the same exact thing. So I'm a big believer in that as well. So, if you can do organ meats, awesome. If you can't, I always tell people, there's a supplement out there that you can take, ancestral supplements. There's nothing else in there but the desiccated, organ. And that is what we should be looking at if we don't want to eat organ meats.
Yeah, some
Absolutely.
of them have fillers like rice flour or something like that. So
Exactly.
you got to read the labels. So
Yes.
what do you do about what do you think about fasting and kind of what's your schedule of eating and
Yeah, I think fasting is very important. I think that is one of the things that we can do, one of the best things we can do for our body to help with autophagy and get rid of a lot of the toxins within our body, especially people that don't have eating disorders. I think it's a great way to start. It obviously work your way up to it and find one that works for you. For me, it's all about eating when your belly grumbles. So it's different every day. Some days I only eat once a day. Some days I eat two. Some days I eat three, believe it or not. But it's only when my belly grumbles. I'm not a big fan of saying, okay, you got to eat at 9, you got to eat at 6, give yourself that window and that's where you got to eat. I'm a big on intuitive eating and listening to what your body needs. And so some days I don't eat until noon. Like I haven't eaten yet today, and it's 1:30 here on the East Coast. My belly's starting to grumble, so of course I'm going to go eat, and I don't ignore that. I don't push it off, but I do know that my body benefits a lot from the fasting, and I don't like to eat past sunset. So as our sun starts to set, we don't eat after that. I don't eat after that. So I usually stop eating around 4 or 5 o'clock in the winter because I believe our natural circadian rhythm, when the sun goes down, it's focused on producing melatonin and going to bed. And so in the summer, I'll probably eat a little later. But for the most part, I try and get done earlier so that my body has the ability to digest everything and go to bed and just focus on sleeping. Yeah.
sleeping. That's the worst if you're sitting there and your food's like coming up and
Yes.
you're like, uh, I
Yes.
wish I didn't. I mean, that happens on vacation or, things when you're off your schedule, you'll like eat too late and you're like, why?
Yeah.
So what are you
Absolutely.
going to eat when you get done with this call? What's an
Yeah.
example meal?
So I have a ribeye on my counter downstairs thawing out, and because we have a freezer just full of meat, all kinds of grass-fed meat, and so I've got a ribeye waiting for me. So I'll do that, and then I'll put some sardines on the side, and I'll probably have like 1 or 2 eggs with it. So I usually
Wait,
the joke in my household is, how many animals did you eat today? That's kind of the joke in the house. So I'll have fish and beef and eggs, chicken. So that's what
so
I'll
you're
have.
able to eat eggs now?
Yes. Oh, that's one thing I didn't share. So yeah, it was probably within a month, I was able to eat them without
That's
any
great.
reaction at
Yeah, I
all.
mean, that's a huge sign that your gut is healing because
Absolutely.
eggs is a a common thing people still have trouble with. And I've done duck eggs for a while and done no eggs, and doesn't seem to make any difference. I mean,
So
I can
you
eat
can't
them.
have eggs. Oh, you
No, I
can.
can eat them all. I
Yeah,
can eat
okay.
them all. I mean, I've taken them out, and it doesn't seem to matter. So I think I did that while I was carnivore, I think, and it didn't matter. So I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think I was I think I had a food sensitivity test, and it said, but it was mild. It wasn't like red, it was like a mild one. So they were like, why don't you try it 8 weeks, no eggs? And I did, but they said I could have duck eggs. So I did duck eggs, and then I put them back with regular eggs, and it was the
It
same.
was fine.
So
And I wonder how much of that is sensitivities to the vaccinations that we had, if you've ever had a vaccination, because I've noticed that with some people that have had vaccines, that they are a little bit more sensitive to eggs. So it's kind of interesting. That's just something we don't know enough about yet, which would be cool to figure that out, because there are, like you said, some people that just can't have them.
yeah, well, I don't. It's been a while since I had any vaccines, like 10, at least like 10 years or something. So
Yeah,
I hope that they don't make us get any for this
I
thing.
hope not. That's my biggest fear. Like all of this, it's great. I think this is Mother's Nature's way of, trying to make the earth stable for her. And because there's just so many of us. But I think that that's my biggest fear out of all of this, is that they're going to force us to do that. So
Well,
let's hope that
hopefully it
doesn't
won't get
happen.
there. Maybe they'll find some other treatment or
I
something.
hope so.
Um, yeah, I mean, when you're vulnerable and you're already health challenged, it's scary to put new weird things in your body. So, um,
Absolutely.
and so what? So what do you think about the rest of, like, what do you think? Where do you think the carnivore movement is going in general? Like, you saw Sean's doing that big study, and what do you
Yeah.
think's going to happen in the future with the carnivore movement?
I think it's going to definitely be more acceptable right now. I think there's a lot of unknowns, and the fact that they're doing a study is great, because I think people need to understand that meat doesn't cause cancer. You can definitely live off in meat without a doubt. And you could also live with vegetables. Some people can. You and I probably are the exception. And there's a couple other handful of people out there that have a reaction to those vegetables. But I think that the fact that they're doing the studies is going to be the way to go, because right now that's what we are. We're evidence based now. People want to know, well, what about your blood work? What about this? What about that? And there's a lot of things that we don't know right now. But I think the study is going to be, I mean, I'm a part of that, and I think that we should be. And I think, if anyone out there that doesn't know about it yet, should definitely go to Sean Baker's Instagram, and there's a link right there in his bio that you can click on and help contribute to the science behind all of this, and let people know that it's safe and it's okay, and we can survive that way. I mean, there's people that have been out there that have been doing it for 15 plus years, and they're alive and well. So I think the more people that want to partake in this, it would be amazing. And I think that it's going to start becoming more acceptable. I went to LA to visit my son, and he and his fiance went carnivore a week prior to me going out there. And we went to Bel Campo, and we ordered just the meat. We didn't get looked at like we had three heads, like most places will, we're like, we'll just take the meat. And he's like, don't even ask if we want vegetables, like he was joking. But the lady she didn't even think twice. She's like, okay. And then they brought out just our beef patties on a small plate, and that's what we ate. And nobody looked at us like we had three heads, which was great. If we did that here in New Hampshire, we would definitely be looked at, kind of weird. But yeah, I think it's going to be more acceptable. And I think it's going to be a way of healing for a lot of these autoimmune diseases that are out there. Because a lot of the times we're told that we won't heal from them, and it's something we have to deal with for the rest of our life. And I just want people to know that it's not the case. There are people out there that have these autoimmune and are eating this way, and they're healing from it. So there is options out there. There are things that you can do, but I would suggest them get your ebook on how to do it the right way, and or find someone to help them through it, because it's not easy. It's something that you definitely need help with, because we have a lot of emotional attachment to food, and we have to deal with those emotions, or else we get what we call the yo-yo dieting. And this isn't a diet. This is a lifestyle. It's not a quick fix. It's something that we have to really, I believe the ones that have the autoimmune have to probably stay on it for a lot longer than most, if not, forever. I've got someone that's on Crohn's, that had Crohn's and has been on this for a month, has no more symptoms, no more medications, and he wants to do it forever. And I was like, okay, let's just make sure you're getting the right nutrients, which means nose to tail to me. That's what that means.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. And, I mean, I always just say, why not, why take any chances? If you can eat that different things like liver and stuff, why not try to eat some of it? I mean, I just don't see why, just cover all your bases. So I know I have a lot of friends like you who used to be vegetarian or vegan. What would you tell them if they're not feeling good and they want to try this? What would you tell them?
I would say start with adding more. If they're vegan, start adding more meat. Just start there, and just work your way to having more of that and crowding out a little bit more of the vegetables. And that is a good place to start, because I noticed when I did that, I started feeling really good. Then when the vegetables came out, I felt really good, even better. So I think that is a great place for them to start, is just add. I know most vegans have eggs or dairy, and I would say start with the eggs. Have more eggs over the dairy, because I think a lot of the times we have reactions to dairy without even realizing we have them. So I would say let's do that first. Let's do the more protein before you do the others. So I think that would be.
I mean, you didn't go straight into red meat. Did you do like some fish or chicken first, or?
I don't even eat chicken. I went straight into red meat. Yeah, which was a huge shocker.
Had a friend. She did like bone broth and eggs, like you said. She very slowly. She couldn't just go straight into, and she still doesn't eat a lot of red meat. I mean, she eats more of a paleo now, but she couldn't go straight into the hardcore stuff.
Yeah. For me, it was I had to, or else it wasn't going to happen.
Well, it's great that you got over that aversion to meat. Now, where can everybody find you have a podcast, and what else?
Yeah, so I do have a podcast, and you can find that anywhere you like to listen to your podcast. So that's the K8 for Wellness podcast, and that's the letter K, the number 8, the number 4, Wellness podcast. And then I'm also on Instagram and on Facebook, same handle, K8 for Wellness, spelled the same exact way, K, the number 8, the number 4, Wellness. And then my website's exact same thing. So it's pretty easy to find me. I'm on all platforms under that handle. Yeah.
And I'll put a link below for her social media. And well, it's been wonderful, Kate.
Awesome.
I think you're going to reach a lot of people that have similar issues as you, and this will be helpful. So guys, if you like this video, please leave a thumbs up, please subscribe and share with a friend. It's really helps us get the word out about carnivore so people can find out the truth and stop feeling bad. So, well, great, Kate. Good job. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Caitlin.